Thanks for listening to Creative Control. While I have you here, please consider supporting Youth Empowerment and Support Services, otherwise known as YES. Based in Edmonton, Alberta, YES provides immediate and low-barrier overnight and day shelter, temporary supportive housing, and individualized wraparound supports for young people aged 15 to 24. They work collaboratively within a network of care focused on the prevention of youth homelessness by providing youth with the necessary supports to stabilize their housing, improve their well-being, build life skills, connect with community, and avoid re-entry into homelessness. Learn more about how to donate or otherwise support YES by visiting yess.org.
My name is Frank Silvestri. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, not a Canadian. And Philly's really close to New Jersey, by the way. And I'm here to talk to you about why I am a Patreon supporter of Vish Khanna's Creative Control podcast, the unique long-form exploration of music, comedy, art, geography, and so much more. Vish is an incredible interviewer who has a charming, disarming, funny, reverently irreverent style, which feels a lot more like a conversation with friends than a podcast interview. These conversations have included talking to people like Jeff Tweedy, Nels Klein, Ira Kaplan, Dan Romano, Carson McCone, the White Hot Lung, Juliana Rialino, and one of my all-time favorites, the Sadies. So if you're like me and you find these kind of conversations vital, essential, and important, I hope you'll join me in supporting Creative Control on Patreon.
To make your flexible monthly donation to Creative Control, please visit patreon.com/Creative Control today.
Rosali Middleman is a remarkable songwriter, singer, and guitarist currently based in North Carolina. Originally from Michigan, Middleman is a member of a garage rock band called Long Hots, but is also a solo artist in her own right, releasing music as Rosali, and in recent years, collaborating with an excellent band based in Omaha, Nebraska, called the Mowed Sound. Their latest effort together is a compelling rock and roll album called Bite Down, which was released by Merge Records on March 22nd, 2024. Rosali and I caught up recently for a nice talk about things like life in Michigan, Philadelphia, and some time she spent in Canada on school trips as a student. Why she's a more detail-oriented musician than she was as a student, with the details, studying environmental science. Why she moved from Philly to a small North Carolina town where she owns a dog. How Long Hots wound up with a single on Third Man Records. Befriending the David Nance Group and the Mowed Sound's live off-the-floor approach on Bite Down. Our shared admiration for H.C. McEntire, a wonderful musician. Her parents' rock band, who have an amazing name, by the way. Appreciating the Grateful Dead. Escaping pigeonholes. Touring, other future plans, and much more. A part of the Entertainment One network with the support of listeners just like you who follow and subscribe to this donor-driven podcast and spread the word about it, and make flexible monthly donations at patreon.com/Creative Control, which is the primary and most reliable way for podcasters like me to make a living. And as you may have heard by now, this is my primary source of income at the moment. So if you have the means, if you can afford to support this show on Patreon, I urge you to do it. Thank you so much in advance if you can. Plus, in-kind support from Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, Ontario, and Granddad's Donuts in Hamilton, Ontario. All fine independent businesses, by the way. This is episode 847 of Creative Control, featuring the wonderful Rosali, with your host, me, Vish Khanna. Hi, Rosali. How are you?
I'm well, Vish. How are you?
I'm well. It's very nice to meet you. Where in the world are you today?
I am in Omaha, Nebraska today. I just flew in. This is where my backing band, David Nance Group, Mowed Sound, they all live here. So we have a tour starting next week. And so I flew in from North Carolina to start practicing.
Nice. Is that, most people, they like their bands where they live. Is it an ordeal? Does it feel weird? Do you got to fly all over the place to practice? It's become, so when I made the first record that we did together, No Medium, that came out in 2021, I was just thinking it would be a one-off with them. And so it was just kind of specific to that album. But since we've kind of developed more as a band, it's become this thing where I'm almost like living in Omaha part-time now, but it's worth it playing with these guys, and we're making it work. So it does make it challenging. Yeah, I can imagine that to be the case. My understanding is you are from Philadelphia originally. Is that correct?
Well, I grew up in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Originally, but I lived in Philly for 12 years. So definitely feel like in my adult life, I'm from Philly.
I see. Okay. Michigan, so you're pretty close to Canada. Quite close. Couldn't be closer, if I may.
Yeah.
That
touches, yeah.
Did you spend any time in Canada growing up in Michigan?
Not so much. I grew up closer to Grand Rapids, which is like, if you do the mitten thing, it's like 3 hours north of Chicago. But there were times we did a lot of camping in the Upper Peninsula, which is very close. And I did some school field trips over to Windsor. They have like a Shakespeare festival there.
Yeah.
So did stuff like that, but not a ton.
Okay. So do you have any particular perspective on Canada? Do you like Canada? I'm sorry, just so we're clear, I'm in Canada. I just want to, I'm not just asking randomly about Canada, just curious.
I like Canada a lot. I spent some time in Manitoba in college. I originally started out as a biology ecology major.
Oh, wow.
And I was working on a study in the summer, studying global warming. And we were in the permafrost forest in Manitoba, studying the rate at which the permafrost was melting. So I spent a few weeks there in the summer, where there's a town that's like almost close to the Arctic Circle, I guess. There's polar bears there, and they have like a jail.
Churchill?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I spent the 4th of July. I was there on the 4th of July one year. This is like early 2000s, and it was snowing.
Wow. Yeah,
that's
weird. That must have been weird for you.
Definitely. Yeah. But I like Canada. Have played like Toronto and Montreal, Vancouver.
So when you're in Churchill, one of the things you can do, particularly if you're in the science realm, is you can get in some sort of truck, and they'll take you to see polar bears, and the polar bears will come up to the truck and say, "What are you doing? What's going on?" And you'll be like, "Hey, polar bear, nothing. Leave us alone." Did you encounter any polar bears?
I did not, no, but we had to carry like bells and bear mace, all of that in case we did encounter more like, black bears, I guess, or hanging out more in the woods where we were. But yeah. I mostly remember being eaten alive by black flies.
Probably better than bears, though. Yeah,
for sure.
Mosquitoes and black flies in that area, when the mosquitoes they're huge, size of like whatever, gumballs or whatever. Like they're, marbles. So they're huge. So that's not good. That's very fascinating. You're not the first person on the show to say they were in some sort of academic discipline, particularly sciences, maths, chemistry, and then they switch. I find that fascinating because I just wonder what that means. Do you have any perspective of what it means that you were going down this road, fascinating, curious mode, probably financially stable, vocationally stable, and thought, what the hell? I'd rather just play music. Not just, I love music, obviously, but I'd rather play music than do all that. What prompted that shift, if I may ask?
Yeah, I think going into that, I grew up being very interested in nature and conservation and wanting to pursue kind of that direction, especially, there were a lot of campaigns growing up in the late 80s, early 90s that I think a lot of children were kind of hyper aware of that. And so I went to a school in Minnesota, Carleton College. They have great science programs there, small liberal arts school. And I think at some point, so I grew up in a musical family and artistic. My mom's a visual artist as well. And so that was just maybe more of a natural part of who I am. And I think at some point, I took organic chemistry and it destroyed me. And also that summer, after coming back from being in the field and doing that aspect of the work I really loved, but then the rest of the time I was in a lab sifting through soil samples, classifying diatoms and other organisms, and I was just in this fluorescent lit room staring at this tiny, having to be detail oriented, which I'm kind of not. I'm in that way. I have an artist's brain, and I think at some point I realized I was like, I don't think I can spend the next 10 years being in a lab. And I like being outdoors, and I like the big concepts and the ideas and the meaning behind this, but I just knew that I couldn't survive in that setting, and found that I've felt the most like myself and as a musician and an artist. And so I was actually switched majors to art, which I was doing a lot of anyway. And I still have a concentration in environmental studies, but more and I kind of justified it in the way of being I can still be active in those realms. You can participate in conservation. You can speak up for things. You can, volunteer on the things that I really enjoy doing and that I felt satisfied more of the immediate impact and need of what I was concerned about.
Yeah.
So and then switched to doing art and music, which you're right, it's not financially stable, but life isn't about money, even though, in a capitalist world, we're forced to have to live that way. Yeah. But so that was the main switch that happened kind of midway through college for me. I
appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. I also appreciate that you say you're maybe not a science detail-oriented person. However, I haven't expressed this to you. I love your new album. Hearing this band, I'd fly across the country to play with this band too. My God, it's wonderful playing, and I really enjoy it. But when I think about the detail-oriented aspect of your work, last night I decided to not only listen to the album, as we've been doing in my house for many weeks, but to actually read along with the lyric sheet, which is something I do towards when I know I'll just tell you inside baseball. And when I know an interview when the interview is looming, I decide I'm going to dig into the lyrics sheet more just to see what it feels like coming off the page after hearing it. Anyway, I don't want to put you on the spot or embarrass you, but I think I pick up on that same level of detail-oriented thinking and writing in your artistic expression. Do you see a connection between, again, you undercut yourself by saying you weren't detail-oriented in the science realm, but do you think there are aspects of your discipline in that regard, or academia generally, that still inform your work as a musician and a writer?
Definitely. And I guess, so to maybe clarify, the detail-oriented mind in science realm, it's more of an organizational aspect of it. So that kind of thinking. Whereas I think I am very, on a creative level, detail-oriented. I freelance as a graphic designer as well, which you have to pay attention to details. And details like subtlety and emotion and how everything fits together, all the little minutia of everything, it definitely, it's not just I'm throwing something and seeing if it sticks kind of thing. I definitely have a huge thought process and think tiny little, the fractals of it all are very important if you're creating the work and having a full emotional spectrum yeah, that is not, it's not to say like, I think, art and science don't have a relationship, and that a lot of art can be very high level detail and thinking, but the kind of that's required of academia and science, it's just, there's a pressure there and a system and the whole pathway that didn't suit me.
Let me put it to you this way, because I feel like I just went through this. I had a job, and I don't have it anymore, but I had a job where after years, decades of feeling and being told I was very organized and detail oriented, I struggled with that stuff in this job because there was just a lot more stuff. But then as I wrestled with what happened, I thought maybe I didn't find those details very interesting. So the details I'm interested in, I'm all in. I try to make a good show here, and I try to make sure the links work, and I schedule things, and everything's fine. But when I'm in a position where the details don't stir emotion in me, I find it harder to engage. I don't know if I'm bored. I don't know if I'm selfish, but I'm just like, I don't care enough about these details. So yeah, I screwed that up. But if I screwed anything up on doing this, I lose sleep over it. I'm like, I can't believe I fucked that up. What the hell?
Definitely.
But it doesn't happen so often because I'm so diligent. So what I'm getting at is, do you think it's that you just weren't as keen or interested in the details as you are in your art?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say, is this, what's the Latin name of this? Like, oh, I don't know. I don't care. Cause I like the bigger idea for this, but yeah, with the art and the music, it's like, oh, that part needs to come up like half a decibel and this one needs to come down. And to most people, maybe they wouldn't hear it, but like, it's just like dialing it into this like perfect zone. I spend hours.
It's so funny you said this, because I was listening to your record with headphones yesterday, and I was listening to the layers of guitar, and every once in a while I'm like, that sounds... It's amazing, but that, like, I wonder what the decision was to leave that little bit of noise clunk in as opposed to mixing it out or whatever. Like, it seems like the feeling is more important than maybe the execution or the accuracy. And they're just, it's mixing decisions that I heard that I hadn't heard with it playing through when, in the house on the speakers. But just listening, I'm like, oh, that's just a really fascinating choice to leave that little clunk in there, but it's a detail. And I assume it's on purpose for you to be, you've probably heard the thing I'm talking about and thought, no, that's definitely got to be in. That's sort of like, they're trying to get to a thing, but it's like, it's a little esoteric as a play. That feeling is important, I'm guessing.
It is important. And we recorded a lot of the album live as a live band. And because we wanted that feeling, and it leaves a fingerprint of the moment, of humanity. And like, if something is super slick, it doesn't quite hit the nail on the head for what my music is. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like it's what makes maybe rock music exciting too. It's like you're walking this edge of like, are you going to like go off the rails, and is it going to be a shit show, or is it, and it's not too tame. It's just kind of walking this razor's edge. And so, yeah, keeping those little mistakes. I sometimes like a take that has a little flub in it, a wrong note. Sometimes my voice isn't as like pristine as it could be, or I'm tired or whatever, but it has character in it. And I like having those kind of just very real, raw takes in it.
Do you always record live off the floor?
Not always. So like just this record in particular, so No Medium, the previous one, we like all the rhythm section was live and then went over and overdubbed everything else. But this one, we really sat as a band for the whole album. And there are overdubs, like guitar solos and sparkles and like vocals are all redone for clarity. But going into this one, I really wanted it to be a band album because we'd been touring a lot, and that's just where we were. And also kind of, I didn't have the songs as developed as I've had in the past, as far as like I know how I want this to sound, because I wanted them to bring their energy into it. and to see where we would go as a band.
Yeah.
So that was a very deliberate choice for this record.
I must say, so for those who haven't heard the record yet, from my own experience, you press play, the album's moving along, everything seems, you're like, this is a really cool record. I like it. It sounds like a record. Then My Kind comes on. I'm like, wait a minute, is this a live album? Like, there's all this like chatter and clatter to get the song going, and then it kicks in and it reminds me of like, I don't know, like Rolling Thunder Review Dylan or something, like the live album, or I'm just like, holy shit. And then it's going. So like, if I can home in on that song, is that particularly live? Like, it sounds like a concert recording almost to my ear. Is that pure live, no overdubs kind of thing?
Pure vocals are overdubbed.
Really? I'm surprised.
Yeah. Just because it's kind of impossible in that setting to get a clean signal for vocals.
Yeah.
Because we're in a room in a basement. Like, we're not in a studio, a traditional studio. But I'm singing along, but you take out the scratch vocals and I redid those. But I'm pretty sure everything else is live.
It's remarkable.
And the intro, like we played that song as we're practicing and learning it and figuring it out. Because the first few iterations, like, kind of had very Fleetwood Mac vibe to it, because we're like, oh, we have to follow this path a little harder to figure out where we are. And then were like that intro part where we all kind of like figured like, okay, we're hitting this more like, I don't know, this Blondie meets, Rolling Thunder Review, just
Crazy Horse, maybe a
Crazy
little,
Horse. Yeah. And we're all like kind of laughing. Like, we were all like excited about where we had kind of landed with it. Yeah. And so like the shouting, I think we finally figured out, for the longest time, I thought it was Dave shouting. He said, act natural. Yeah. But it's actually Jim. But Kevin, the drummer, thought it was him. Thought it was himself. We had a little argument. We're like, who's saying that? But
how do you get to a point where you think you said something you didn't even say? That's odd.
I don't know.
That's weird.
But I just loved it. And then there's a false ending in it too, which was totally a happenstance, because we like are petering out and somebody said something and I thought it was like a signal, like, let's hit it again. And so we all just kind of leapt right back into it, which was a total serendipitous, spur of the moment decision. Yeah. And so that one definitely like has that fun energy to it that totally comes out of all of us like playing around. Like, that's not a song you could, or how we did it, it's not really one you could plan and have that energy. Yeah.
Yeah. The band seems special and your interaction with them seems special. Going back to how we sort of started this conversation and about geography, I suggested that you moved to, or maybe I didn't say this, but you did move from Philadelphia to North Carolina, and you mentioned you're commuting quite a bit now to Omaha. I want to get into how you started working with this band, and whether or not you're like, maybe I should move to Omaha. This is ridiculous. Like, it seems special enough, the dynamic, that you'd want to keep it going to my ear, but I don't know what prompted you to move from Philadelphia to North Carolina. Maybe we can get to that. And like I say, I also want to get to, you know what? Let's start there. Let's start with that. What prompted you to go from Philly to, I don't know where you are in North Carolina exactly, but can you tell us that?
I'm in the so I'm in the Durham area. I'm between Hillsborough and Durham. And I moved there in September of 2021.
Okay.
No. Yeah, 2021. But I had moved, so I left Philly on election day in 2020. I voted and then went back home to Michigan for about 9 months to help family out.
Oh, okay.
And so I was living in northern Michigan, and I got a dog during that time, like a lot of people did during the pandemic.
Seems that way, yeah.
Yeah, it was just like trying to figure out what was next. And then during that time, No Medium came out, and I still didn't think that like touring wasn't happening, live shows weren't happening. It was very much in the thick of it, of the pandemic. But then as things started to kind of open back up again, I started getting a lot of tour offers, which I was very excited about and not expecting. for that to happen, kind of when the record came out in May of 2021, it was just more like, I need this album out so I can move on creatively, and I feel like I want the world to have it. So when that happened, I needed a kind of a new home base, and I didn't want to move back to Philly. I was priced out a little bit, and like having a dog now, not a great place for an active husky.
Oh, it's a husky.
And
okay.
She's a husky puppy. Well, she's a mix, but mostly husky.
Can we, I don't mean to pry. Can we learn the dog's name?
Oh yeah. Her name is Foxy. And she's
Foxy the dog. Okay.
Foxy the dog. And she's an all white husky Staffordshire Terrier mix. I did a DNA test because they told me she was part lab when I adopted her.
Wait a minute. A husky looks more like a wolf, right?
Yes.
But you named it after the fox? Are you trying to create tension?
No, when she was a puppy, she looked like an Arctic fox.
Oh, nice.
And she looked, because she's all white.
That's a good name. I'm always sorry. We have dog talk and animal talk, pet talk comes up. I'm always just curious about names. And I feel like you learn a lot about the person based on the name. And so Foxy's playful. Again, going back to your roots in nature. It's nature, Sorry, I'm just...
That's okay.
Little psychological profiling. I'm sorry.
It's okay. And also, I was living with my sister at the time, and she had a cat, this big orange tabby cat named Wolfie. Oh. So I thought it was really funny to have Foxy and Wolfie. And
that's good. That's pretty good.
And so when I needed a new place to live, because also I didn't want to pay rent in Philly, but I was going to be gone for like half the year, and trying to find a good environment for Foxy. And a good friend, I was just talking to her, just checking in, and she said, well, I just bought this house out, and it's a different place than I live now in North Carolina. It's a little town called Saxapahaw.
Oh.
And it's like 40 minutes away from Durham. She's like, I just bought this house out there, and I've got all the space, and if you want to come stay here, you can totally be here for as little or as long as you like. And
oh, nice.
It was very kind, and I was like, okay, are you sure? And I have a dog,
Yeah.
And she was totally into it. And so I found myself headed down there, not knowing, I'd known Durham, and I have friends there from touring, but I didn't know anything about it. And I was a little nervous, moving to a small town in the South, and I just wasn't sure. But Saxapahaw is it's just a bend in the road. It's like an old mill town, but there's a venue there called the Haw River Ballroom. They have lots of great shows, big acts tour through. And so it's that, a general store, and a couple other small shops. So didn't feel cut off culturally. And and I ended up just really loving it here. There's a solid community of musicians, but there's also so much nature, which I was really craving for inner peace and inspiration. Yeah. So there's thousands of trails, and then Merge is here, which is who I ended up signing with shortly after moving.
Shortly after moving. You weren't affiliated with Merge before you moved to North Carolina. Then you moved there, and they say, well, we got to sign you now. Is that how that works?
Yeah, more or less. It was I was like, oh, you can't hide from me.
We like to support our local musicians and community, and darn it if you didn't, call our hand here. No, that's lovely. I mean, you wouldn't know this, I guess, but Merge is I'm sure you talk to lots of people who are thrilled that you're working with Merge because they love Merge so much. Yeah. Count me among them. Very formative influence for me since glomming onto them in the early 90s for me. Just like, what the hell? And they're great. So that's lovely. That's
They're great. Yeah. Wonderful people. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And it feels like being part of this community. They're very very relaxed label to work with. They're never once were they like, you need to change this, you need to change that. Yeah. It was, so.
That's great.
That's great. Yeah. So that's how I ended up in North Carolina, and I really love it. And
then you connected with these group of, how did you connect with this band that you've been working with?
So I met them when I was still living in Philly, and I think I met Kevin first as a drummer. He was on tour with, do you know the Renderers? They're a band. They were like a New Zealand band.
Huh. We're being invaded with great New Zealand bands of late, I think. Have you ever heard tell of the Beths?
I I don't know if I have. I'll look them up.
When Mac from Superchunk and Merge was on, we both geeked out about the Beths because he'd seen them.
The Beths.
The Beths are the best. Yeah. Sorry, that's hard to say, but they were on my show, and I thought we got along really well. But I spent a lot of the interview just raving to them about how much my family and I love their latest album. They're wonderful and young people, and it's just great. Sorry, but they're also from New Zealand. I didn't mean to cut you off. Something's going on with New Zealand. Something's going on in New Zealand. Yeah,
something in that volcanic soil.
So being so remote, you just make great stuff. Yeah.
But he was playing drums with them, and I played a solo show opening for them. It was just, I think it was like 2016 maybe, because it was just after my first record. And then they came back through as the David Nance Group. And played shows, and we all would just like hang out. And it's kind of in music scenes, you kind of have this greater community and throughout towns and from touring, and you're all kind of like, oh, these are my people, even though we don't live in the same area, but we have these affinities and the type of music we like and all of that. So we were all aware of each other. And then in 2019, I'm in another band called the Long Hots, and we're a garage rock trio. It's with two other women, and we had a 7-inch come out on Third Man the same time as David Nance Group.
Oh.
And so leading up to that, we all were like, oh, we should just go on tour together. So we did this 2-week tour all in the same van. It was in June of 2019, and it was just so much fun. Like, we all got along incredibly well and just laughing hysterically the whole time, and both like inspired by each other's bands, and just really hit it off in the way like it's hard to make such close friends sometimes as adults, like later on in life. Yeah. And I think it's like, that concentrated being in a van together for 2 weeks, you become intimate. And so midway through, I think it was after our Detroit show, Dave turns around on the van. I was sitting in the way back, and he's like, Rosie, we want to be your backing band for your next record. And I was like, okay, really?
Wait a minute. He put you on the spot. You're trapped in a moving van. You're in the back of the van, and he's like, is that a question? Is that a question or a threat? How did you
we joke that it's a dare.
A dare. I see.
Yeah. So I took him up on the dare.
Yeah.
And so it was in November. I was in Omaha, and we spent 10 days in the basement, Jim Schroeder's basement, making the record. So, and so we didn't know each other that well, and not in the way we do now. Like, so making that record, the language we had was definitely, it was like kind of getting to know each other.
Yeah.
Was making that album, and required a great deal of like blind faith. Just knowing like, okay, well, you play well. We know each other in this context of these 2 intense weeks we had, but not like we've spent a lot of time in conversation or anything. So then, so that's like how that formed. And then we finished that record in March of 2020.
Right. So you
finished mixing it.
Yeah. I appreciate the story of how you guys came together. You said a couple of things that I want to ask you about. I want to ask you about the affinities that you share. Within that, I hope we can go down a road of talking about maybe influences and inspirations for you as a budding musician, and maybe whether those foundational elements, you can feel them still present. Even in My Kind, we both of us threw out some sounds that we heard or that you felt like you were conjuring, I guess. I don't mean to put words in your mouth. So I want to ask about the affinities and your trajectory in a moment. Back to the Third Man thing. You say you put out a 7-inch on Third Man with the other band. What does that mean exactly in terms of like, who approves that? Do you have any interaction with Jack White per se? Do you hear tell like, oh yeah, or is it Ben? Like who?
It's Ben. Yeah.
Ben says, I saw your band. I like your band. Let's put out a 7-inch. Do you get a sense that Jack? It's just Ben. Ben. For those who don't know, it's Ben Blackwell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, Ben Swank.
Oh, Ben Swank, different Ben.
Ben Swank.
Okay.
Different Ben. Yeah.
Okay, different Ben. Who is?
Ben Swank.
Who's Ben Swank?
He's just one of the Third Men.
Okay.
One of the three men.
Okay. Sorry. I think, am I right? Is it not Ben Blackwell who also works there and does stuff?
I've only interacted with Ben Swank.
Okay. All right. I apologize for the Ben confusion. So
it's okay. But there could be,
could be another guy. Okay. Maybe I'm confusing things.
So Swank, so Long Hots had put out a tape for a tour that we had just recorded in our on our phone. That happened to be like a practice. That happened to be like one of those, like we were totally in the zone. And so we put that out as a tape for a tour we were doing. And we put it up on Bandcamp as well, just to like, get some gas money. And somehow like, none of us were expecting anything of it. And it got a little bit of press, which was really, funny to us, but we were happy about it. And we got an email from Ben Swank, just like, hey, love the tape. Love to do a 7-inch. Do you want to just send us a couple songs? And we were like, oh, that's okay, cool, weird. And yeah, we just ended up sending songs, and they were kind of really low quality, recorded on our phone, like nothing fancy. And they were just kind of like, cool. And they put it out. There was no real fuss to it. I mean, I think because they have their own pressing plant, they can do kind of whatever they want. And yeah, it was kind of one of those like rare situations where you don't have to chase something down. It's just opportunities come to you. And I think it was partly the energy that our band had, and all women playing kind of, we call it basement boogie, but like garage rock, like
that's nice.
Cathartic.
That's nice. Yeah. There's something about you and your aura. No disrespect to anyone else you collaborate with, but there's something about you that people I want to work with. Yeah. Rosali. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Oh, well, that makes me feel good. I don't know. I just try to, play from the heart. That's all. Yeah.
Just to retrace our steps for a moment, I apologize again for the Ben confusion. Okay. I don't know a ton about Third Man Records. There are two Bens.
Yeah.
I just figured this out while you were speaking. I thought, am I getting something wrong? Does Ben Blackwell have like a pseudonym? No, there's two Bens. It's Jack White, Ben Blackwell, and Ben Swank. Ben Blackwell has been on my show. We had a nice chat many years ago. And so I was like, when I said Ben, that's who I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Why would they have,
you can say like, yeah, it's all Ben.
Why would they have two Bens? That seems unnecessary. I think you make a call on the executive level. So anyway, you don't know if Jack White even knows anything about you guys.
I have no idea. I've never met Jack. Yeah. I know Dave has. They maybe opened a couple of shows for him.
Yeah.
And now their record is like their proper LP. The recent one just came out on Third Man. So
okay.
Like a few weeks ago.
Oh.
Yeah, so they have a more in-depth relationship with Third Man.
Maybe I should reach out to one of the Bens and see about getting Dave and his band on the show too at some point.
Definitely. Dave, I mean, they're wonderful. Like, you'll have a great time talking with them if you do.
So I don't mean to cause trouble, but back to where I was leading with this. Oh, I meant to ask about your trajectory and affinities. I will get to that too. Let's not forget that. I think there's some real gold potential there in terms of conversation. But my main thing there was, have you thought about taking you and Foxy closer to the band and moving again? Have you even contemplated this? I
did kind of when we were recording the last record. So this would have been like a year and a half ago.
Okay, yeah.
And so like 2022, I was here a lot. We were touring, and it's always, me being one person in the band living here, I'd be the person to travel. And I was like, man, should I just move to Omaha? And it's like probably a little cheaper than North Carolina. And, it's colder here. My dog would be happier. I definitely considered it. Oh. But it's also one of those things where, when I'm here, it's like, yeah, it's a great time because we're kind of preparing for tour. And, I by this point too, I've met a lot of their friends and I've become friends with their scene here as well. And I have that advantage of like, if I just moved here without having this band, just kind of moved here out of, shuffling the deck or whatever, it'd be one thing. But like, I kind of know the art scene here. And I do like Omaha a lot. I think it's a cool city. There's something about the Midwest, like small towns. And it's not a small town. I mean, it's a city, but it's got a small town
Nebraska
vibe.
Is considered flyover state, right?
Yes,
like
it is.
Yeah,
I think it is. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on here, and there's Saddle Creek, and there's things going on, and it's a cool mid-century modern kind of vibe to it. It's and I like the prairies and all of that.
I'm in the prairies too. I live in the prairies. I live in Edmonton. Yeah.
It's beautiful, and
it's a little flat. It's too sunny.
Yeah.
I find it too sunny. You drive, it's too sunny. I don't like that.
Yeah. It is sunny. It's also very windy here.
That's right. Bright and
actually,
windy. It's weird.
Yeah. It is. But then I was, it's like deciding to move. Just one of those things where I was like, I'm not sure. And
let's flip it. Let's flip it.
Yeah.
Have you said at a band gathering, hey guys, what are you doing here? Why don't you pick up and move to the Durham region of North Carolina? Have you ever said that?
I think I have, and everyone just kind of laughs. But, all their families live here. And Dave, he's married here. He's married and has a kid now. They have a 1-year-old. And his parents live nearby, and her parents live nearby. So they've got their whole network and support and, all their partners. And then for me, I recently started dating somebody. I started dating a woman who's on your podcast, who's been on your podcast, H.C. McEntire.
Oh, wonderful. I love H.C. McEntire. That's wonderful. Yeah. And that is, for those who don't know, that last H.C. McEntire record's amazing. And
it's incredible. She's brilliant.
Yeah. That's, I didn't realize that. Yeah. Wait a minute. When you were contemplating the press you were going to do, and this came up, because I'm sure someone said, hey, you want to do the Creative Control podcast? You're like, what the hell is that? Did HC, were you familiar with the show because of HC in any way?
No, I was familiar with the show, and I actually hadn't listened to the one she'd been on. So I was like, I'm going to do it. She's like, I did that. Say hi to Vish. So I was going to bring it up anyway. But
that's lovely. I didn't realize that. We had a really nice time, and I feel like we had when I was alluding to people who went to music after contemplating a different way of thinking and doing things, as I recall, did HC and I talk about basketball, sports?
Oh, she said that. She's like, we talked about, because she's really into the women's NBA.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, she's into the WNBA, but I feel like I have to think about this, and I'm sorry, I do so many of these, but I feel like she was going one way, and then music found her, and it changed everying. On some level.
I know she has she's a writer also. She's studied that. And she's a multifaceted person who I think could do a number of things, but she's so talented with music. She's a wonderful singer.
Nice.
Yeah, it's my first queer relationship, but she's such a special person. I mean, hopefully we're going to collaborate.
Oh, amazing. That's great.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's that grounds you in a place, you're in a relationship, and even though I think she'd probably be open to moving, it's like Nebraska might be a hard sell for some people. Yeah. Even though I'm somebody, I can find kind of the beauty in anywhere that I am, but there's not like a ton going on here. There's
but there are some sort of outdoor sort of activity kind of like is there a lot of hiking there and stuff like that, or
here in Nebraska there's there's hiking, there's like bluffs. And I guess like in Iowa, which is super close, like Omaha is very close to the Iowa border. There is a region called the Sandhills, I think, that it's only this ecological formation occurs here. There's here, and then there's a place in China that it occurs. And so it's a very special area, which I haven't been. The guys keep telling me about, but
you know what? I think you're going to move there. I can already hear you like it. You like it a lot. Like it. I think you like it.
I like it. I do. And also Kevin, my drummer, was telling me last week they went out to Grand Isle, which is that's where Dave grew up, but there's the Platte River, and it's this area where the sandhill cranes on their migration, they all come from different areas in the north and meet here and then split off on the south. But right now there are like 1 million sandhill cranes in this area, this very small town out in middle Nebraska. So he said he drove out there the other morning and sat in a blind and watched these sandhill cranes. And this is the place they meet. And so that's kind of very remarkable and special.
Huh. It sounds like I feel like you're going to move there. That's just my feeling at this point. I think you like it, but no, that's cool.
I do.
Okay. Hey, thanks for listening to Creative Control, as always. As you may have heard me mention, I recently lost my day job, and I've had a few conversations with people since who've said, you had a day job? I thought your podcast was your day job. When I explained why it hasn't been my day job to a friend, he suggested I should share some of this information with people like you listening right now. So, in short, unless they have some giant exclusive $1 million contract, podcasters are not paid to make stuff by companies like Apple and Spotify. Podcasters do not make any money from streaming royalties. Ad revenue is dependent on a certain threshold of downloads each month, and even if your show is accessed 30,000 times a month, the income you get is actually really minimal. So podcasters like me usually make time in our lives to support our communities and our interests to make these shows, and our most reliable source of income for this work is in fact crowdfunding. In my case, it's my Patreon. So if you'd like to receive ad-free episodes earlier than everyone else, regular newsletters and blog posts, bonus audio content, and support my work, quite literally, please visit patreon.com/creativecontrol today. I want to go back to my affinities thing. Because as I was pondering this album in particular, I feel like it's really dynamic. Like, I mentioned my kind sort of, sorry, I don't know if I put it this way, but I feel like it kind of blows the doors off the record all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like, you're just like, whoa. And then it goes to the title track, I believe, if I have the sequence correct. And it kind of comes down, but it's still, I like the pocket of the rhythm section and everything about it. And you make some really interesting choices in terms of like, overdubbing I guess a harmony vocal on saying bite down, like just like interesting stuff is going on. So I really find it all very alluring. Let's step back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of affinities you share with the folks in the Mowed Sound. Can you talk a little bit about influences you've had that got you playing and maybe got you writing the way you do and singing the way you do? I just want to see if we can start there and see how we've gotten to where we are with this record.
Sure. I don't know if I mentioned this before. So I grew up in a musical family.
You did, yeah.
Both my parents had a rock and roll band growing up.
Oh.
And it was called Otter Lunacy.
Otter Lunacy. So again, you've got the nature, the science, and the art and the expression and puns, I guess, or something.
My parents are like pun people, my dad especially. And
Otter Lunacy is both great and I don't like it. I'll be honest with you. I like it, but I don't.
I know.
I don't know.
I know. I know. They had a business card. It had an otter and a loon.
Oh my God.
Dancing on it.
Oh no. Was it spelled otter, Loon, a C? Are you kidding me? Oh my God. Make up your mind. That's too much. Too many animals. I don't like it.
I love you, Mom and Dad, but yes, I know.
No, that's fantastic. I'm sorry. That's wonderful. So what kind of was the rock and roll band? What kind of rock and roll was it?
It's like kind of like 70s rock and roll, 60s, 70s, but they did a lot of cover songs. But they would do like kind of like covers of songs they weren't the hits.
Okay.
So
tasteful cover band.
And they had some originals as well. And so it was like my parents, another married couple, and then an old friend of theirs who I called an uncle. He wasn't actually blood related, but close family friend. So cool, like family band vibes to it. And I just grew up kind of going to their gigs and practices. And I'm one of 7 kids, and my parents would teach us, songs from the American Songbook and other, old folk songs that we'd all sing together. And that's how I learned harmonies. And so it was very much from a very young age, like singing a lot. My parents were Deadheads too, like listened to a lot of that kind of music, which I have.
You told me their band name, Otter Lunacy. I know they're Deadheads. You don't have to explain. It's evident.
Stating the obvious here, but
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's true.
That's just funny to me. By the way, they were Deadheads. Yeah, I know. I can tell. I'm sorry.
And it's funny, like, the whole argument, like there's a Grateful Dead divide.
Yes, of course. Like, well, there was. I feel like that orthodoxy has... Well, I mean, sorry. Some of us... Sorry. I find it still hard. I mean, I warm up. I like a lot of bands that I think Pavement. I'm a big Pavement fan, and over the years, people have said, certainly Brighten the Corners. That's a little more Grateful Dead-y. And I'm like, really? And then, there's some there. I think the more I dig into the Dead, I feel like the Dead got kind of, I don't know. They just became shorthand for a thing that wasn't even their fault. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
And when you're like a band for that many eras and decades, like you're going to make some great stuff, you make some garbage stuff. And that's like, it depends on where you land. But growing up with some of it, it's like there are certain aspects of it that are comforting to me. And so it's like I have this relationship where it's like, well, yeah, there's a place in my heart for it because I have childhood memories that are positive surrounding it,
Yeah. And my snobbery had to melt because I've seen Bob Dylan 40 times. And when you go see him, you are among the Deadheads sometimes. I've seen him with the Dead, actually. And that was fascinating for me. That was almost like a anthropological experience. I don't know how else to put it. I was like, oh, right. I forgot about these folks. And then, but then when I go see him on his own, they're there. I say that sound, can you be racist towards a community of arts followers? I don't think that's the right term. I still feel a little snobby about it. But I'm like, I don't know. We have an affinity for the same guy. And he has an affinity for the Dead. I should give this more of a chance. Sorry, bizarre tangent.
It's okay.
Just want to tell you that I want to, all of this is just, I want to listen to Otter Lunacy now. I just want to listen to what they've come up with. That's where my mind is at. I'm sorry.
My parents are going to be excited. Maybe their CDs will sell. But
sorry.
But I think something about that, like growing up listening to like jam, like the jam music, like, it's definitely, along with that, my dad was also really into jazz, and like, so I'd hear a lot of that, and also like he was a cellist, so he would learn. You
got a cellist on your record.
I do. Yeah, Megan, see what she lives here. She's great. And so a lot of that experimental side to a song that is just kind of inherently ingrained. It's ingrained in my mind.
Yeah.
And then my mom heavily, her like influences that I grew up with were like a lot of British folk music and
Fairport Convention. Maybe.
Yep. Big influence for me. Sandy Denny, her singing.
Yeah.
That's like an early memory.
I hear that for sure throughout your music. I can tell that's an influence. And I when Richard Thompson was on my show, I just dove straight in because it's a lot to hear, and I'm like, man, I hear the imprint everywhere now, and I didn't realize some of it was so pervasive. If that makes sense. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Yeah.
No, it's all right. Like, and also Dylan was huge, in our family, and we also had older sisters who, one sister was like super into punk and like gave me my first Walkman and Nirvana cassettes and, Cowboy Junkies, and got me into like that stuff. And another sister was into like, Zeppelin. And so I was lucky, to have like a big, broad influence. And I was also grew up listening, I grew up in the country and there weren't record stores around. And so like my radio that I listened to was a lot of top 40 R&B of like the 90s, which I also love.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like a wide circle of influences. And I think when you're a kid and you have a lot of those, like I didn't develop a lot of like snobbery around music until later in life. Like, so maybe my discernment wasn't as keyed in, but I think was cool in a way.
Yeah, it's weird. As a younger person, you want to fit in, and then as you get older, you want to differentiate yourself.
Yes.
You don't want to. So it sounds like we all, everyone I talk to seems to have gone through the same thing, where the radio or mainstream TV gets them into it, and they're like, wait a minute. Because almost everyone you've alluded to, I think, for me, extolled or exhibited freedom in their work to do whatever they want and escaping pigeonholing. And when I say your record is dynamic, I have a hard time telling someone exactly what it is. And I think that, sorry, I don't mean to be reductive, but as you describe your upbringing, and the things you heard and the influences, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like that freedom is something that I hear on your record and in your music. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And I really, the pigeonholing is something that I've been having a lot of conversations about because it still happens. I get referred to a lot as like a soft singer-songwriter. And I'm just kind of like, where? I mean, my first record maybe, but singing with the way that I do, that just how my voice is it? But I'm also like, this is kind of more rock and roll and there's like punk elements. But then I hear people refer to the record as a country album and like it's my least country record.
Not
and
a country album. Just for the record. Not a country album at all. Yeah.
I mean, there's like 2 measures of dobro on it. Maybe that's where they're getting it. But it's like, it's not at all. And it keeps coming up in like reviews and even some interviews that I've done. And I'm just, and I get, that's the genre I get put in folk country. And I'm like, this is rock and roll and pop music and punk. And like, I don't understand the pigeonholing. And I think it's kind of a sexist thing, to be honest.
Yep.
And I just don't know where that comes from. And like, I mean, I think it's in some ways like genres we're maybe past that anyway, culturally, even though people just need a way to categorize things. But
I think you're onto something, though. I think people do try to pigeonhole or place people in conventional signifiers because they don't know what to do with them on the one hand, because it defies it. But I think most of those things, the reason people do it is it makes them feel safe.
Sure.
It makes them feel like, oh, I understand this because I think it's like this. Whereas that has not been, for what it's worth, like my experience with this record in particular is that I don't know what it is.
Good.
When you're singing, when you mention the 90s R&B, like, your vocal approach to Bite Down, that's where that seems to come from now that you mention it to me. Like, so I'm sorry this is happening to you. For what it's worth, I will tell everyone I can. This is a dynamic rock and roll record. It's beautiful. It's really emotional. And I want to ask you in an overarching sense, and I know this can be difficult, but I don't know if you're someone who writes in a batch, meaning do the songs emanate from the same batch, or rather same feeling or tone, or are you someone who accumulates ideas over the years? I ask because I wonder if you see any through line or thread or umbrella concept in the songs you've written for this particular record, the lyrics, I mean, in particular. Does anything come to mind in terms of where your head might have been at in writing these particular songs?
Yeah. So for the most part, I would say generally speaking, I am a batch writer. Yeah. That being said, there are changes in the form, which is the second to the last song on the record. I wrote that song when I was writing for my second record, but I couldn't figure it out. At the time, it wasn't right then. And I think it's just because I think these guys were the ones who needed to play it with me. So that song's older, but the rest of them were all pretty much formed kind of since moving to North Carolina. Yeah. Some of it I'd started to write, like I'd had fragments, like Bite Down. I'd had that line, that bite down on it part, like the first line for a while. I think I started writing that in Michigan during the pandemic because I was feeling depressed and I was walking a lot, and I write in my head, I'll write lines a lot while walking, kind of walking with like the rhythm of my body and my breath. It's kind of where a lot of things will start just coming out. Like if I'm sitting down trying to write, I'll be like, I can't, I'm trying to write, and it'll be more difficult than just kind of like letting myself relax. Yeah. But I would say that's all in the same time frame. It's like a transitional period of leaving Philly, of sobriety, of kind of maturing in this way.
You said you had entered your first queer relationship, and I don't mean to pry, but even like
that's okay.
Hills on Fire, for example, I was really captivated by the imagery in the chorus. I will just recite. I don't know if this is connected to what I was just alluding to, but I couldn't help but feel like hills on fire and still we climb. Lift my skirts, cover your eyes, bitter sweat, yours and mine. There's some carnality there of some kind, and I wasn't sure if it was related to that illusion in any particular way. I don't know.
It's not. Yeah. Well, not specifically to this. HC and I started dating like 6 months ago. And so this record was already done. But there is a bit of that. And that line, it's a mix of, there is like a carnality. I was like thinking about this old story, a friend talking about her first sexual experience. And that's like a really old like imagery that came up. And then on top of it, the idea imagery of like lifting your skirts to run, like an older, like an old fashioned kind of idea of like, lifting your skirts to run. Like it's kind of,
I see.
That notion, like also like femininity in a way. And like this idea of having to wear a long skirt. And
I mean, hills on fire still we climb. Like that's an obstacle and a persistence there.
Yes.
I'm sorry if I conflated with your own.
It's okay. Yeah, it's all good. And I mean, all of that, those are all threads and through lines. And I've been single, like as far as relationships go. Yeah. There's another thing as far as like, reading how people interpret albums as well. I think I saw someone refer to it as a breakup album. And I'd been single for 8 years, other than like, casual things. But I'd been in a couple back to back, like really emotionally intense, bad relationships.
Sorry to hear that.
So I was just like, I'm not, it happens, and it's all I wrote some records and wrote some songs from them. So it's all life experience. And,
it is interesting that some people external to you would assume that what you're writing about isn't a composite of the different relationships. I find that this happens more and more where people assume it's a breakup record, so you must be talking about someone specific. But as artists get older, I think the cumulative experience is reflected. And if someone's saying you, it might be 20 yous. It might be 1 billion yous.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So is that maybe
Absolutely.
Part of your process where you ponder?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like pondering, and because, as time goes by, your perspective on something changes. And the lessons you learned have become clear, and maybe it's not as emotionally like charged in that immediate feeling, but it's like a different emotional charge. And I think for this record, I moved across country twice during a pandemic. I left Philly, which I felt, I feel like I grew up there as far as like coming of age. Like I toughened up. I decided I put my eggs in this basket of doing music, and went through a lot there. And so leaving this place that I felt a strong sense of community and identity with, but I knew I was ready for a transition to kind of visiting home, which always brings up stuff, no matter how close you are with family or not. Like there are a lot of childhood things that came up being there, and family dynamics that I was reminded of, and some other dramatic things. And then moving to a completely new place. So that all kind of happened in this time frame of writing a new record, and also, having put out a record that had meant a lot to me as well. And just a lot of change, and I think positive change for me, like deliberate change, choices, making decisive choices. And so that's kind of, I feel like Bite Down, like the title of the album. And I've talked about, in some of the writing I've done about the record, but this idea of biting down, of, it's not leaning in, it's biting down. It's a more decisive, like intense feeling of just like, okay, like life is hard. And that's a very reductive thing to say, but you have to accept it. Like if you're going to, grow and learn and be part of community, like biting down, like I want it all. I want to devour it all. And that's like biting down on the cake. I'm going to consume it, but it's also biting the bullet when things are hard. And so that's kind of like the energy that I've been writing in this perspective. I
mean, that's empowering on the one hand, but the actual lyric is, help me, darling, I can't seem to bite down on it. So
yes. Well, that's that song in particular, but like taking that line as an album title out of the context of the song to like make it more of a command, like bite down. Whereas like the song is about that, and it's about it's a lot of conversations that I was having with friends and family at the time that I was writing that, of like, you know, a lot of people feeling life was pointless and life, like, you know, the political state of our country and like global things, and just feeling kind of like the veils lifting of like, shit's bad.
Yeah.
And life feels pointless, and like we can't just continue on in our day-to-day as we've been doing. You know, people talking about suicide and all these things. So like that's the perspective of that song, and like asking for help, asking for community. But then as a album title, having it be like Bite Down, it's more of a command, it's more of a directive to have that energy of like, I'm biting down on life. And that's like the dynamics of the album, I think, reflect all those different facets of life, and
I mean,
how as an individual I'm moving through them. I guess.
Well, I mean, speaking of dynamics, Slow Pain also struck me as a standout song, and it's got this, I guess I don't know if it's a bridge or a chorus. Fuck me or fight me, it's all the same. Killing time with a slow pain. Like, that is the way you deliver these lines. Battle the feeling you don't like me, because there's a feeling you don't like me. That's hard. That's hard. I mean, I can't help but assume this is conjuring one of these bad relationships you were talking about, but I can't tell.
It's a mix. I feel it's hard when I talk about like meanings of songs.
Yeah.
I was just talking about this with a bandmate yesterday, because when I write a song, I'm like, they're about a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of different things. And like lines I draw that, you know, and then it can become this maybe more universal meaning. To distill it down, it's about simultaneously one of these particular things, but also like situations where you're like, you can kind of tell like, this person, I can tell you don't like me, or like, there's like a preconceived thing that, and it's from a perspective, maybe a more mature one. It's like, I kind of don't care that you don't like me. Like,
but I think there's, so within all of this, like when you're reflecting upon your life and your life with people, it can be a mix of nostalgia and bitterness. You've got that sequence I just mentioned. And then in Rewind, which I think is really kind of about, I think in my reading of it, is sort of a warm sort of memory about someone. But this more, you know, the other one is like, fuck me or fight me. I love you and I know you love me too. Be the same you. I'll rewind for you. Like, I don't know. Like, that just got me thinking about this midlife period some of us are in, where we want to, we're thinking, I don't know what's going on, but the pandemic, I feel like, inflamed this. We're like, okay, everything does feel a little hopeless. I don't think we got a lot of time left. Maybe I'll spend more time thinking about the past. Maybe I'll spend more time watching the old shows I used to watch. Sorry, I'm not just talking about myself. Maybe I'll reconnect with some people from my past. Like, there's something there. And I feel like there's some of that is in that song, of feeling some security in a relationship and feeling loved. Whereas your other song is like, I don't think you even like me. so there's some juxtaposition going on with you in some of these songs, if I may. And it's normal. I just can't tell if it's purely reflective or you're using this as a launching pad to be like, okay, I got this all out of my system. I'm going to be myself now. Like, this is all informing who I am now, and I got to move forward. Sorry, I don't know if that's a question per se, but there's something going on here with you and your own security and feeling loved or not liked, I suppose.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that saying like, I think Slow Pain is is kind of hitting on that, trying to find who, you know, where do you stand in your relationship to yourself to some degree? Because that's like, you know, I've been in those relationships where it's like, do you like me? I can't tell. It doesn't feel that way. But then there'll be moments where like, okay, maybe like questioning it. And I've stayed in those situations for too long, where it's like, when you're on the other side of it, you're like, oh, you should just like at that moment, just be like, all right, you know what? I love having a feeling of being with somebody, that either being alone or being with somebody that I can tell that even when we're fighting, that you like me.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's like, I think the maturity level or like the self-discovery. Yeah. And that song itself, like a lot of the chorus is more about the self, you know, myself, or the perspective of, it's not about the other as much.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so like, that's like the kind of the quest of the song, and even like how we did it, like the energy of it. I wanted to be upbeat. There's almost like a girl group chord progression to it. It's like this poppy vibe to it. And like the addition of the cello, it's just got like a hyped up feeling, almost like you're running and you're running through these rooms of self-discovery. And then through the reflection of like when you're in a relationship, it's, they're mirrors of who you are. And so like that is there. And then, rewind that you bring up. So that the rewind part, it's about not having those regrets in life. So even those like, like be the same you, I'd rewind for you. It's like in those difficult moments, you would do it again because it's been worth it.
Yes.
And those, reflections like in what you do with your time and how you spend your life and who you spend it with, like it's all worthwhile. Even if it doesn't work out, it's taught you something. It's brought you've experienced growth, and even if it's been awful. And so it's like it's from a perspective of like not wanting to regret, because after a long-term relationship, I remember getting that I'd been with somebody for my whole 20s, and there were great moments and there were like towards the end a lot of bad ones, but I consciously decided with that to like not have like this well of anger, animosity, or regret towards it, because I felt like it would make me regret my whole 20s.
Yeah.
And sure, there's things I wish I hadn't done in my 20s, but that's all part of growing and learning. And
it sounds like time and temporality on some level has been on your mind. Passage of time,
for sure.
And as you're moving through time. And I mean, I don't know. There are times where it's like we've talked about some of the, I guess, sonic influences that you have and I've heard, but even just choices of diction. Like one of the last song I believe is called "May It Be on Offer." Am I saying that correct?
Mm-hmm. That
sounds like old timey contractual legalese. You know what I mean? Like I understand the sentiment of it, but there's just choices you make that give it all a kind of timelessness, because I can't quite place. I'm surprised someone would say it's this. This is a country record. It's this kind of record. I don't have that with this. It's just not my relationship. I don't know what it is.
Oh, good.
I don't know where or when it's from, but it does sound like it was written and composed and performed by a bunch of time travelers, and I like that.
Oh, good. It feels good to hear you say that, because I kind of have always felt like I'm not of a time.
Yeah.
I'm a cuspy person. Like I think having, the influences of my family that I brought up, that's been like multi-generational, and also like things I've personally been drawn to, a lot of like old fashioned things, like tradition. I like traditional arts. Craftsmanship, like those aesthetics have always been something that I've been drawn to. Like I'm interested in ancient cultures and all these aspects of humanity. But I'm also like, there's things about pop culture I find delightful. And I've always kind of like, I don't know where I fit in on a timeline. And
well, I mean, speaking of people who don't fit in on a timeline, I noticed in the promotional materials, one of your champions is a good friend of this show, Dan Behar, Destroyer.
Yes.
He wrote a nice and glowing essay about this album and you. What is your relationship with Dan exactly? How did that come about?
So we did a month-long tour with Destroyer for No Medium back like 2 years ago. And Dan, so this is like when I didn't think I was going to be doing any touring, I get an email from Dan Behar. And he'd heard the record, and he's like, asked if we wanted to go out on this long tour. And I wanted to like open my email and see that, and that was like, oh my God. And so we went out, we did the tour, and they were just so wonderful to us. And we all just had, their whole band, they were incredible live band. And his songs, the way he performs is just so captivating. And then Ted Bois, who plays keys in the band. He ended up playing with us and during our live shows. And then when we went to make the record, so I guess I finalized the merge deal while we were on tour with them.
Yeah.
And so I think we'd been maybe like out with them for like 10 days or something. And they're like, I just heard something. Is that true? You know, like alluding to it. I was like, yeah, I guess we're label mates now. And so we, during that time, like they all started asking questions like, well, what are you going to do for this next record? Like, is this your band? Like kind of like really pumping us up about it. And then they're like, and Ted's coming out, right? Like they just kind of were like getting us really excited to embark on this record. And I was like, I haven't even finished the songs yet, but yeah, okay, let's do it. And I invited Ted. We all love Ted, and like, well, do you want to come out to Omaha? You know, fly out. And so he said yes, and he came out he was out. I was in Omaha for about 3 weeks, and he was there for 6 days. Mm-hmm. And it was wonderful to have him as an element. And yeah, that whole tour, like we cried at the end of it because we just, you know, loved being on the road with Destroyer. We're like, can we just keep going? Let's just keep going. Like we'll do all your tours together. And we've kept in touch, you know, over the years. And I reached out and asked if he'd write the one sheet for it because
lovely.
I mean, has a way with words, and I was really happy that he said yes. And he's like, I'd love to. And I recently saw him. I played in Vancouver in December. He and his wife came to the show, and they're just,
he's lovely.
He's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. The last time he was in Edmonton, I don't keep track of shows as much as I used to. And he texted me to be like, do you want to come to the show? I'm like, oh yeah, we do. And my wife and I went to a show for the first time together, and it feels like forever. We have kids, and one of us usually sticks around, and the other one goes to whatever. And it's great. He's lovely. That's great.
He's so lovely.
That's really,
they're all very kind. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for spending some time with me. I hope this was fruitful. I think we covered a fair amount of ground, I hope. What do you think?
Definitely. Yeah. I think it was great. I really appreciate you having me on as well.
No, it's my pleasure. Absolutely. So let's get to some housekeeping or business stuff, I suppose. I want to find out from you where people can go to learn more about your work, you know, using telephones, computers, whatnot. And we'll get to that in a moment. But I also want to ask you about future plans. Because you might be writing. You might have more songs. I don't know. What's going on with your future plans beyond this record? And then after that, let's get to sort of the plugs where people can go to learn more. So anything coming up?
Yeah, well, we're about to embark on a bunch of touring. So that's kind of been in the forefront. That starts on the 19th. And then that's about a month long around the country. There'll be more announcements with all of that, you know, throughout the year. But, yeah, I've started writing again.
Oh,
like I've kind of always, you know, it starts brewing and I take a break, and then, but recently I started putting some new songs together. So I don't really have any information about that yet because, you know, it kind of will take shape as time goes on. But yeah, there'll be another record, hopefully.
Are you the type of person who might try to feel those new songs out on the road?
Yeah, if we can. Yeah, we started. I mean, we've been playing Rewind for a while on the road, so that was like it's been fun to have like a new song in the mix. So probably if I can, it's always like finishing lyrics and committing to them is the hardest part for me.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, if they're in a place where we can do it.
And you were alluding to potential collaboration with HC?
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about it. It's just, I think it'll happen. It's inevitable.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Very exciting stuff. That's awesome. I always like when people, often at this point, someone will say, tank's dry, got nothing.
Yeah.
Just the record's coming out, we got tour, I'll figure out what's happening after that maybe. But that's really heartening. That's great. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's good.
So if people want to follow you or learn more about your tour and your album and all that, because obviously Merge Records is one place. Where else would you like them to go?
I have Instagram and Twitter or X or whatever.
Twitter. No one calls it X. We're not calling it X.
Yeah. It's stupid. It's just dumb. But
we're going to get it back. I feel strongly we're all going to get it back from whatever it is right now. That's my feeling.
I hope so. And same with the country. But
yes, exactly.
So it's Rosali Music, and that's Rosali. There's no E.
Yep.
And music. Those are the same. And it's also rosalimusic.com. I have a very, very minimal website.
Okay.
But it has the essential information on there, like tour dates and whatnot.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, so we'll follow and track you, and I'll track you. That sounded horrible. Yeah, like you're a polar bear out in Churchill, Manitoba. I'll link to everything you just said in the links in the show notes so people can, keep tabs on your comings and goings as a traveling musician. Still sounded creepy. I don't know why I said it like that, but yeah, people want to keep track of it. Yeah, there you go. So we'll do that.
Yeah.
And then, so as we're speaking, the record's out very soon. But as people are hearing this, the record's out in just a matter of days. So with that in mind, I was hoping we could go out on a song from this beautiful new album. And if that's fine with you, I wonder if you can pick the song and tell us why it came to mind. Can you do those things?
So Hills on Fire, I think, is my favorite song on the record. So maybe that one. And that's the song I originally wanted to have as the opening track of the album. But I changed it. But just because there's a very long guitar intro, and I'm a fan of Maggot Brain.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And it's kind of in that spirit, but the song is not like Maggot Brain, but it's in that spirit of just like a long instrumental intro before any singing starts. But I think it's a song because of that. Also, it could never be a single, but I think
we're making it a single today is what it sounds like.
Yeah,
today it's
right.
a single. I believe this might be the song our friend Dan Behar refers to as potentially the centerpiece of the record.
He did say that, yes.
But it's like the third song on the record or something? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
I have my facts straight, and now you're going to hear it if you haven't already. This is a beautiful new album called Bite Down. I hope you'll all check it out. And here's a little taste of it. This is Hills on Fire by Rosali. Rosali, a tremendous pleasure to have you on this show. I hope you did enjoy yourself and that we talk soon. And best of luck with everything in the tour. And don't move to Omaha. I just don't think you should. Just stay where you are. It sounds like a great setup. And say hi to HC and Foxy, and best luck in the future.
Thank you so much. It was great speaking with you.
a bit of blue. That color looks so good on you. Hills on fire and still we climb. Lift my skirts, cover your eyes. Bitter sweat, yours and mine. If I wanted you, I can be hellish and awful too. Anger built in my youth, never learned how to soothe. Hills on fire and still we climb. Lift my skirts, cover your eyes. Bitter sweat, yours and mine. Hills on fire, hills on fire.
How about that, Rosali? Huh? I hope you enjoyed the songs you heard, or the song you just heard, and if you remember the song that I was playing at the beginning there. Anyway, the album, Bite Down, unbelievable. I really, really love it, and I grew to love it more when I spent some time with the lyrics and all that kind of stuff, as you heard me maybe discuss. Anyway, it was just really a pleasure to get to speak to Rosali. This occurred for the 847th episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Entertainment One Podcast Network and is available wherever you get your podcasts. If you can't find an episode you're looking for, or if you want to learn more about me and sign up for my monthly newsletter, please visit vishkhanna.com. There's a link that says follow Vish online in the show notes. That's where you can go to figure out where I am on various social media platforms, and it's also like the YouTube and the writing, whatever. I don't remember what else is on there. It's like a link tree, so you just click on those. Oh, actually, probably for you guys, I don't know how you're listening, but if you're looking for a new podcast player, you don't like the one you have, I put a bunch on there as well. Anyway, follow Vish online by clicking on the link there. Also in that link tree, Patreon. So please, if you can afford to do so, please visit patreon.com/creative control to make a flexible monthly donation to sustain me and this podcast. That's my primary source of revenue right now. We have seen so much growth since I've been pushing this more, since basically the beginning of December. I don't know, we're up like 30% in terms of membership. So remarkable. I wasn't sure. I mean, my only thing is I regret not doing this before, but I've always been sort of gainfully employed and didn't want to bother any of you. And now, I can't wait to bother you every chance I get, because I need money. This is my only job at the moment, and it's going well, I mean, in terms of growth. And I'm very humbled and honored that you take time to support the show on Patreon. There's perks at the different tiers. Beginning at the $4 a month tier, you get ad-free episodes. You get those episodes earlier than everybody else does. At $6, you get bonus content. At the $10 a month tier, you get to enter a draw to win a monthly prize of some kind, and that's been going well. So trying to give back a little bit for those of you who support on the Patreon. But again, I can't thank you enough. So if you're able to, please don't put yourself out if you can't afford it. But if you can, support my show on Patreon. please, now's the time to do it. So click on the link for that as well in the show notes. Also want to thank some independent businesses, Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, Ontario, and Granddad's Donuts in Hamilton, Ontario for their in-kind support for this show. Jim Guthrie's a wonderful musician. You should learn more about him at jimguthrie.org. And finally, thank you for listening to this episode with Rosali. I really enjoyed it myself, and I think she did too, and this record, Bite Down, is wonderful. So check that out. Subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends about it if you can. Otherwise, go about your lives. Have a great time. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.